early in my career, I'm on the way to Florida with Bill Dempsey, the guy who got us in the business, and Jimmy Rucker, and he told a funny story. Dempsey was a great storyteller, and I'm a great listener and laugher. I got laughing so hard I couldn't stop. Have you ever been in one of those situations, where you laugh and you're sick and out of breath, and then you catch your breath and start laughing again? Anyway, it was a story about a guy who was a newspaper carrier in Atlanta, and for some reason, I don't know how he found out it was true. For some reason, this guy had a reaction to a certain thing, and B, how Dempsey found out, I don't know. But he worked at 5 Points, which is a big intersection in Atlanta where the banks are and everything. And if you went by on foot or in a car and said, "Hey, Henry," he'd go, "Henry, Henry, Henry," and throw down his newspapers and stomp on them. And so if you're young and stupid, it's funny to have somebody do that. One day, Bill Dempsey is walking down the street with a guy named Richard Michaels, who was a big deal in holiday magic at the time. And here's Henry right in front of him on the sidewalk. So Dempsey walks on one side and guides Richard where they were split by this guy. They each walk on one side. Dempsey reaches around to Richard Michaels' side, taps the guy on the shoulder. He was facing the other way and says, "Hi, Henry." And he turns around with his stack of newspaper, hits Richard Michaels in the face, drops him to the sidewalk, and begins yelling, "Henry, Henry, Henry," and leaping up and down. For some reason, I found that amusing, and I started laughing. And then Rucker in the back seat starts laughing. So then I started laughing to the point I fell out of my seat, and I was curled up in the fetal position under the dashboard for much of the trip from Atlanta to, I think it was Jacksonville, Florida. And I arrived there worn out from laughing, go up to the room, get cleaned up, put on a suit that doesn't look like I've been on the floor of a Lincoln all afternoon, walk to the front of the room. This is the first time I had spoken to about, 500 people, I'm guessing, which was a big crowd. Every night in Atlanta, I was speaking to 100, 200, and so on. But 500 people looks a lot bigger than 200. I walk up to the front of the room, have a nice introduction, and they give me a warm round of applause, and I look in the back. Dempsey's standing in one corner, Rucker's moving towards the other, backing up, unrolling a piece of butcher paper about 3.5 feet tall and long enough to cover the back of the room, on which is written in huge letters, I don't know how they got it done, written with marker pen and all, "Henry, Henry, Henry." And I collapsed.
Oh
on
my
stage,
God, yeah, you couldn't take it.
I went right into the hysterical, can't control myself thing again. And by the time, and now I'm pointing at the back of the room to show people why I'm doing this, and Rucker and Dempsey are just standing there looking at me like he's lost his mind. What a shame. There's no sign of the sign. It's gone. And they come up to get me. Literally, they pick me up under the armpits and take me to the back of the room. Face down, I'm watching my toes drag along the carpet, shrieking. And I'm looking up at people as I pass them on the end of the tables, and I said, "Henry, Henry, Henry," like that would make sense to them. And they're all backing up, okay, Henry, Henry, whatever. So I'm dragged out, thrown in the lobby. I remember it was in a wicker chair, left to my own devices in a wicker chair in the lobby of this place. So that's one. One that's funny now but wasn't at the time. I'm called by the home office. I was still a distributor in Atlanta to go up to New York to a big meeting. They were having 5,000 people in the grand ballroom of the Park Sheraton Hotel. That afternoon, the guy I was going to be working with called and asked if I wanted to go to lunch. His name was Earl Westmore. You're probably too young to know it, but the Westmores of Hollywood were the makeup people. They did the makeup. There was a Westmore brother. There were 5 brothers. There was a Westmore brother at the head of every major studio in Hollywood at the same time. And then Mr. Westmore Sr. was treated like a god. So I'm now going to have lunch or breakfast, whatever, with Earl Westmore. I called my mother, who used to watch him on the old Art Linkletter show, and I said, "I'm having lunch, let's say, with Earl Westmore." And she said, "No, you're not." And I said, Yes, I am. Uh, why is that so amazing? Because he's a television star and a big deal in Hollywood. She wouldn't believe me. So anyway, I go to lunch, and during lunch, he's popping pills out of a little jar like they were M&Ms. I later found out they were heart pills, nitroglycerin. And he's talking about how much he likes me. And he said, tonight, would you mind if I introduce you? It would be an honor. I said, an honor? I hope we can get it on film since my mother doesn't believe we're having lunch together. Sure. So he goes up and he does his thing. And he told me, I said, if you had to go, after I figured out those were probably heart pills, if you had to go, how do you want to go? And he said, I want to go on stage talking to women about, his catchphrase was, there isn't a woman in the world who through the arch of a brow and a bow of a lip cannot be made more beautiful. He said, I want to go talking about the love because I have a love for this. And I said, that's fascinating. So I go down when it's time to go on stage, look at 5,000 people, and I'm thinking, I think I'll just slip up and go back up to the room. The worst will happen is they won't be able to find me. Somebody else will come up. I got all this stuff justified in my mind. I was not ready to appear before 5,000 people. So I had one foot up on the four-step riser going up to the stage, and I thought to myself, no, I'm going to go. And just as I thought that, they wheeled a spotlight around and put it on me because Ern had started into my introduction. Now, you can't slip out of a room with 5,000 people in it and a spotlight on you. So I stood there and he said, ladies and gentlemen, my newest friend, a man who I believe will become president of this company. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Franklin Gay the third. And as the D came out of his mouth, he dropped dead on stage. And I don't mean fainted. There's a look when somebody faints. This is like he'd been shot with an elephant gun. Boom, down. So I got up and grabbed the microphone. I said, is there a doctor in the house? And a couple of guys came forward and started working on him. I said, somebody call whatever you called them in those days. It wasn't 911. And somebody did that, and an ambulance came, and they came in with the Stokes litter, the stretcher on wheels, and started working on him. And finally, they looked up and they said, sir, he's dead. And they loaded him in the Stokes litter and started across the stage to go down the steps and out the side door. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is the only thing I had lived. Ladies and gentlemen, I had lunch with Ern Westmore today. I asked him how he would like to go if he had to go because I knew he had a heart problem. I just found out. And he said on stage, talking to women about how they can become more beautiful, and I quoted his famous catch line. And it looks like he's achieved that. Let's give him one last standing ovation. And the management of the hotel told me that they could hear what was going on in the ballroom out in the lobby and up one floor, the roaring of the crowd. So the doors, I can still hear in my ears. The medics push their way through the doors, and I hear flap, flap. And then I think, oh, it's back to me again. Well, we had a script. It was a 47-minute word-for-word script plus a 15-minute film. Then the lights came up, and you started hopefully signing people up. So the only thing I had to go with, as they say in show business, I got nothing. I had nothing but the script. So I said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Gay. I'm a general distributor with Holiday Magic, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's special meeting. I went on for the other 46 minutes, showed the film at the end said, turn to the person who brought you here and ask how you can get started. The lights come back up, and the distributor is supposed to get out their legal pads and start circling. Our normal closing rate in a situation like that, figure the audience is half prospect, half distributor, was about 50% of the prospects would sign up. And that's with different closers of different closing ability, but we'd still get about 50%. That night, we got almost 90%. And it was the same meeting, word for word, so it wasn't my meeting. It was the emotion of the moment. Most people have never seen a person die and so on. So when I'm asked how to be effective in group presentations when you're selling something, I say, here's what you do. Get a very famous person to introduce you and drop dead on stage. I'm telling you, it never gets any better than that.
So after that, did you hire shills to join you with the rest of the...
Yeah, to come in and fake death? Never got that bad. But things like that, just funny and sad things that 40, 50 years later become funny. I've had dozens of... We had a movie projector and a screen to show the Holiday Magic film. The screen was enormous. I'd never seen a screen, on 3 legs that big. And we had just run the film and all. And I go up to say something with a screen behind me, hadn't given any thought, and I'm looking at the front row, and their faces are all... And I'm thinking, I didn't say anything that bad. And then it hit me, literally. The screen came down on me, and I went up through the middle of it in my custom-made, tailor-made black suit. And you remember those screens? They had that glitter all over it. Yeah, I look like Frosty the Snowman.
I didn't know the stuff came off the screens. Okay, now I know.
Oh, it comes off the screen. Yeah, it does. Under the right circumstances, it comes off. Hollywood Palladium. We rented the whole Palladium for 30 days and did 2 meetings a day there for 30 days on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. First time I go on stage, I had my briefcase with me. For some reason, I guess I was going to get something out of it. Oh, I know I was. And I'm doing questions and answers, and somebody asked me something. And in my mohair suit, custom tailor-made suit, I go over to open my briefcase to answer whatever the question was, and it was on the floor. So I knelt down in front of, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 people. My pants in both legs split from the cuffs to my underwear.
Oh my God.
And, now what do? You either off stage in either direction was 50 feet, and you can't do that backed up to the audience. So I could go on and on and on and on with funny things and things that people...
What about any bad moments? I know the guy dying at that time was bad, but it turned into a good story. But anything bad stayed bad?
Yeah, I've gone up on my lines a few times, show business term for you forgot what you're supposed to be saying, even though most of it was scripted, where I just didn't know anything. But if that's happened to me 5 times, I was saved each of the 5 times by Wade Cannon, one of my early mentors. He used to be vice president of Wilson Learning Corporation, Larry Wilson's company. He got up in front of a room one day and was telling about the qualities they should have. And he said, here's 5 qualities you should have. And he listed 4, and then he would get to the 5th one, and he couldn't remember it. And he would pause and look around and say, oh, this is embarrassing. And then he would look up and say, oh, the 5th one is what you're feeling right now, empathy. So I wasn't doing that trick, but when I went up on my lines, I said, after some point of realizing it wasn't going to come back, I said, what I also want you to learn that's important in selling is what you're feeling right now. You have to learn empathy. And people go, wow, that was fantastic. The truth is, I didn't know what I was going to say next.
That's fabulous. Now, you're a pretty good storyteller.
Is
that like inherited?
I'm a Southerner.
You're probably
from the South.
You might be the best storyteller in the world with that closing rate. I guess you can't. Stories sell, right?
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.